What's up, everyone? So I was watching First Take on ESPN this morning, and Stephen A. Smith, along with the entire panel, had this really intriguing segment breaking down some major news that just came out about the Indiana Pacers and Benedict Mathurin. Reports came out that the Indiana Pacers are not expected to give Mathurin a full contract extension by the end of the day, and that they will likely let him hit restricted free agency next season. The Pacers would still have control over Benedict Mathurin and could work out some sign-and-trade scenario or see what his market value is before giving him a new contract if they choose to match. The panel was discussing how we've seen several players this past offseason, from Jonathan Kuminga to Josh Giddey to Quentin Grimes. All these young players either ended up taking the qualifying offer or got some new deals worked out. So everyone's watching to see how this situation unfolds, because Benedict Mathurin is a player that most teams, if not every team in the league, would love to have. He's a guy that performs during the regular season and even elevates his game in many ways come playoff time, which is extremely valuable. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into this massive Lakers news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Lakers fans who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So, seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second, and it helps me out more than you know. This report comes from NBA insider Jake Fisher, who stated that the Indiana Pacers are unlikely to sign Benedict Mathurin to an extension. According to Fisher, Mathurin is another 2022 first-round pick who appears unlikely to land a new deal by the Monday night deadline. Yet this news should really come as no surprise given the Pacers' uncertainty and uncertain present situation, minus the injured Tyrese Haliburton, who's out for the season. Basically, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Tyrese Haliburton's injury and how this season and this team is going to shape up moving forward. Stephen A. pointed out that if Indiana was reluctant to commit long-term money to the since-departed Myles Turner earlier this summer, then Mathurin will almost certainly have to wait for his extension. So basically, the Indiana Pacers want to play the waiting game and not commit to certain financial obligations because of all the uncertainties with Tyrese Haliburton's health, how the team is going to look, and how competitive they'll be. There are even talks about come trade deadline. Depending on where Indiana sits in the standing, maybe they have a bit of a fire sale and retool or revamp this roster, especially after losing Myles Turner to free agency. The panel made a good point about how the Pacers weren't even willing to pay Myles Turner what he wanted, and he ended up departing to sign with the Milwaukee Bucks, because Turner looked at it like, if you guys don't want to pay me what I'm worth, that's fine. Indiana came out publicly and said Turner didn't even give them a chance to match the offer or anything, but it's one of those situations where, if you really want a player, you give them the money without all the back-and-forth negotiation. There wouldn't have to be extended discussion. Either you want me or you don't. Give me the offer. If you don't want to give me a competitive offer, this other team clearly wants me and values me, so I'm going to take that offer from them. The difference, though, with Mathurin compared to Myles Turner is that Mathurin is a restricted free agent, whereas Turner was unrestricted, so Turner could just leave in free agency. Indiana isn't really worried about Benedict Mathurin leaving unless some team offers him crazy money that forces the Pacers' hand. There are a lot of teams projected to have significant cap space next season, Lakers included. A team could offer Mathurin a hefty payday that Indiana just decides is too rich for their blood, and they don't want to go that route financially, allowing the other team to just take him. But you've got to keep in mind that offering a restricted free agent a contract ties up your cap space until that gets resolved. A lot of teams aren't really willing, especially with the new CBA restrictions, and what we've seen over recent years, even pre-CBA, teams are kind of reluctant to throw big money at a restricted free agent. Teams would rather work out a sign-and-trade scenario, because if the Lakers, for example, give Mathurin $30 million per year, which seems to be the going rate for guys like Jonathan Kuminga and Josh Giddey, in that 25 to 30 million range. Let's say the Lakers decide they like Benedict Mathurin at 23 years old. He won't be 24 until June, right when the Lakers could potentially be in the NBA Final. Maybe the Lakers look at the situation and say, hey, let's throw him $30 million per year. The problem is that money's tied up and frozen until that offer sheet gets resolved by Indiana. So you can miss out on a bunch of other free agent players and opportunities while waiting to see if the Pacers match. Maybe you try to work something out to land Mathurin in a sign-and-trade instead. The Lakers are going to be in their own complicated spot with Austin Reeves' contract situation. To go and tie up a bunch of money on Benedict Mathurin and potentially end up losing Reeves or something like that, there's definitely an argument to be made for trading Austin Reeves if you do successfully acquire Mathurin, because Mathurin is younger. The First Take panel was talking about how last season Mathurin averaged 16.1 points and 5.3 rebounds on 46% shooting. And he's also a guy who elevates come playoff time, which is incredibly valuable. The Lakers are going to have their own decisions to navigate and try to figure out what they want to do this upcoming season based on how things play out. If the Lakers win the championship, that could cause them to go one direction. If the Lakers lose in the first round, that causes them to go another direction entirely. If they get close and lose in a tough 7-game series in the conference finals, or lose in the NBA Finals, that could cause them to pursue a different direction with roster construction. Everyone's going to see how this plays out, but it's definitely something to keep a close eye on because Stephen A. said he would absolutely love Benedict Mathurin on the Lakers. Again, he's young, athletic, versatile, and has shown the ability to play both sides of the basketball. He needs to commit a little bit more on the defensive side at times, because he can take possessions off defensively. But he is a guy who has shown the ability when he wants to lock down and defend, give good effort and athleticism. We're talking about a guy who's 6'5" or 6'6", who could slot in beautifully next to Luka Doncic long-term. One of the big arguments for keeping Austin Reeves is that we've seen Luka Doncic have success in previous situations with a self-creating guard who can create for himself but also create for others. Think of Jalen Brunson in Dallas. Think of Kyrie Irving in Dallas. Austin Reeves is a guy who can create for himself, but also facilitate for others. So when you send Luka to the bench for a breather, Austin Reeves can take over, make plays, and run the offense. Same dynamic with how Kyrie and Brunson work. Well, if Benedict Mathurin is a guy who can develop a little more of a playmaking game, he's definitely someone who can self-create offensively. As far as making plays for others, he can get tunnel vision at times, but again, he's only 23 years old. His role on Indiana has been the bucket getter coming off the bench as that sixth-man offensive spark. Yeah, he'll start some games, but he's primarily there to be that offensive engine, especially with Tyrese Halliburton having the ball in his hands as the primary playmaker. That's actually good, because Benedict Mathurin is comfortable playing both on-ball and off-ball, so he could be a guy you bring in and have him be that self-creator and slasher alongside Luka Doncic, or be a guy that you slot in, especially if he can buy in on the defensive side and fully commit to both ends of the floor. In theory, you could have Luka, Austin Reeves, and Benedict Mathurin all on the floor together. The panel wasn't sure exactly how they felt about that lineup, but Luka's size at 6'7" or 6'8" gives you benefits in lineup combinations you don't usually get, because Luka can slot in at either wing spot and defend one of the opposing wing. So you could have Austin Reeves and Benedict Mathurin alongside Luka, with let's say Rui Hachimura and DeAndre Ayton. That's a potentially switchable defensive lineup. On offense, you could have Mathurin or Reeves at the 2 or 3. It doesn't really matter at that point, because they're just shifting and flowing based on the offensive sets being run. So there is an argument to be made that you could acquire Benedict Mathurin regardless. See how it looks. Give Reeves his $30+ million extension, hopefully at a reasonable number, and not $40+ million. If you can retain Austin Reeves and work out a sign-and-trade for Benedict Mathurin, now you've got those three and can figure things out from there. Maybe if the right trade comes along for someone like Herb Jones, maybe you're more incentivized to trade Austin Reeves at that point. Or if Austin Reeves kind of struggles this season, not so much during the regular season but come playoff time. The last few playoff runs, he hasn't been very good in the postseason. So if the Lakers end up having another season where Reeves is great during the regular season but struggling come playoff time, that could give the Lakers incentive to do a sign and trade. Sign and trade Austin Reeves, then go acquire Benedict Mathurin. Maybe it's even a 3-team trade where assets you get in the deal help facilitate getting Mathurin from Indiana. Maybe you're getting a player plus an asset or two that you're sending to Indiana for Mathurin while Reeves goes to a 3rd team. Maybe it's an Andrew Wiggins swap scenario in some crazy 3-team trade where the Lakers end up with Luka, Mathurin, Wiggins if LeBron James sticks around. Or if not, then maybe Rui and DeAndre Ayton. Now you've got that self-creator. You've got that 3-and-D wing. Ideally, you'd go the younger route. Could you get someone like Herb Jones? There are talks about potentially trading Austin Reeves for Jaden McDaniels from Minnesota. If you can acquire Benedict Mathurin, maybe you go make that trade for Jaden McDaniels. Imagine having Luka, Benedict Mathurin, Jaden McDaniels, and DeAndre Ayton, then figure out the power forward spot, whether it's Jackson Hayes or Rui Hachimura or Jared Vanderbilt. At that point, you've got a great young core with Jaden McDaniels coming into his own. Obviously, those are just potential possibilities that the panel was throwing out there. The question is whether Indiana is even willing to do a sign and trade, or they might just decide to pay Mathurin. They might just give him the money and match any offer. Mathurin might just take the qualifying offer so he can become an unrestricted free agent, which could make it easier to trade for him or could cause him to just leave Indiana in free agency. Does he want to be a Laker? If he tells Indiana he wants to be traded to the Lakers and they don't want to pay him, maybe he forces their hand. Looking at Mathurin's statistics, he played 72 games last season with 49 starts, averaging just under 30 minutes per game at 29.8. He took 11.8 field goal attempts per game and shot 46% from the field overall. He shot 34% from three-point range on 4 attempts per game, which isn't great. But the previous year, he shot 37.5% on 4 three-point attempts. So he's consistently a 4-attempt-per-game three-point shooter. Can he get back to that higher percentage, especially playing alongside Luka Doncic and potentially LeBron James or Austin Reeves creating open looks? From 2-point range, he shot 52% on just under 8 attempts. His effective field goal percentage was 51.6%. Free throw shooting was 83%, 1% on just under 5 attempts per game, and he's a career 83% free throw shooter. He averaged 5.3 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, half a block, and 16.1 points per game during the regular season. But looking at the playoffs last year, in 22 playoff games, he didn't start any of them, primarily coming off the bench. His minutes dropped to 17.5 per game, but he still averaged 11 points, 3.3 rebounds, 1 assist, half a steal, and half a block. He was playing 10 fewer minutes because Indiana was playing Halliburton, and other starters many more minutes. From 2-point range, his percentage went up to 46.8%. 3-point range, he took fewer attempts and shot 30%, which definitely needs improvement. But we saw the playoff performance capability. He's a guy who can go out and drop 30 points in a playoff game and score the basketball efficient. He just had a more limited role because the Pacers were relying more on their starting lineup. The First Take panel consensus was they would love to have Mathurin on the Lakers. He's a guy who has shown the ability to perform in the playoffs. Does he need some work, particularly with his 3-point shooting consistency? Absolutely, but he's only 23 years old, so there's plenty of room for growth, upside, and potential. He's shown the ability to play both sides of the basketball. He's got the athleticism and physical tools you want in a modern wing player. So that was the full First Take breakdown of the Benedict Mathurin situation with Indiana, and whether the Lakers should aggressively pursue him in restricted free agency or via sign and trade next offseason.